I love movie posters. They're the one part of the movie that you can take home with you, and even if the movie sucks, it can still have a great poster. And now in the digital era, I think we're kind of spoiled because the same movie can get so many different posters. So I'm going to go through my favorite posters of 2024, I'm going to rank them and explain why I think they're the best. Number 10, Wicked. Doing a poster for Wicked is kind of a challenge considering the original stage productions poster is so iconic. And yes, their live action version did stir up a little bit of controversy, but they were always gonna have to do their own thing for the movie. And I think what they've done really works. For one, you just don't really get green and pink as a color combination very often on posters, so this one really stands out. It's pretty directly inspired by the painting The Creation of Adam, with both of their hands outstretched, just about to touch. And maybe it's a bit pretentious to compare these characters to God, but whenever that painting is supposed to be a visual representation of the creation story, it kind of works that Wicked is inspired by that, because as a movie, it's supposed to be the creation story of the Wicked Witch of the West and Glinda the Good Witch. So yeah, I love how it shows the relationship between the characters, I love the colors, and I love how it uses that association with such an iconic painting to hint at the story. Number 9, Dune Part 2. Sometimes the best posters aren't even released in English, and I think that's the case with this one for Dune. It shows the moment of Paul riding the sandworm, and what I love about this one is that it feels like such a perfect fit for a Denis Villeneuve movie. One of the things I think his movies excel at is showing a sense of scale. All his characters feel so small in relation to the world around them. And a lot of posters aren't able to show scale very well because a big prerequisite for them is to show the movie star. And that's why we get so many floating head posters with all the actors in the film. And look, that is a big part of marketing. Stars do get people into the cinema. But this one I think really sells what the movie is actually like. They've obviously gone for a landscape design for this one. And that extra size is just perfect for the scene that they're showing. If you tried to squeeze this moment onto a portrait design, it just wouldn't work, you wouldn't get the scale of it. And I think this is able to capture a great moment from the film without spoiling anything. It's just a beautiful piece of art. I love seeing posters that experiment with different sizes, and I think it captures the movie in a really perfect way. Number 8, Alien Romulus. So what I love about this poster is because it's a franchise movie, everyone knows Alien, you don't have to sell the film on its actors. You don't need some character holding a big gun, looking scared. People are going to this because it's Alien. And of course, the facehugger famously covers people's faces anyway, so they're able to do something really fun here by hiding the actor completely. All you get is the fact that she's gripped onto the tail of it, clearly trying to rip it off. But because this is a still image, you're stuck, locked into that moment. She's forever trapped like that. And there's just something about being frozen in that moment that really gets to me. And then just to top it all off, the whole thing is just drowned in red. They could have gone for a green or blue design the way that the rest of the Alien franchise has done with their posters, but I love how the red sets it apart from everything else that's come before, and it just sets the tone of this perfectly. This is a very simple poster, but it's a horror movie poster that is actually a little bit horrifying, and that's why it made the list. Number 7, Coraline. So Coraline is a 2009 movie, but in 2024 it got a cinema re-release, and with it, a new poster, so it counts for this list. And one of the great things about re-release posters is they don't have to do the same job that a regular poster does, because at the end of the day, normal posters are a marketing tool. They exist to grab people's attention, hopefully make them aware of the movie, and then get them interested enough to go and see the film. And so they have to appeal to a broad audience, and that kind of limits what they're going to do with the poster. Re-release posters don't have that restriction. If it's getting a second theatrical run, it probably is because it already has an existing audience that are already aware of it and want to go see it. And with that, they can afford to be a bit more experimental with it because the movie has already made its money. And with the Coraline one, I think they just did a fantastic job. It's quite a minimalist design. It's mostly a white background with Coraline running through a spider's web, and you just get the clawed hand of the other mother pointing the needle at her. If you haven't seen Coraline, the big thing with it is that her other mother wants to sew buttons into her eyes, which is the most horrifying thing in any kid's film. And so with that, the poster is almost entirely sewn, including the title and even the tagline. And I think the best posters are the ones that are able to use the world and the design of the movie to communicate the story. And I think this one does it in just a really creative, expressive way that I just love. Number 6, Gladiator 2. There are a lot of Gladiator 2 posters. Most of them are fairly standard, generic, modern movie posters. But the character posters I absolutely love because they've been done in this painted style. I'm pretty sure they're just photographs that have been edited, but I love the texture they've added to them. They're all in black and white except for the gold on their outfits, which is a really nice touch. And these just feel old and classical. And when a movie is set in a different place or a different time, it's just really nice when the poster reflects that. And I also just think this is another example of the benefits of poster design in the digital era, because back in the day everything had to be hand drawn and painted, and there's definitely something to be said about that art form being lost a little bit when we moved digital. But because of how labor intensive that was, that meant you probably got just one poster for a film. But nowadays a movie can have a whole bunch of different posters, and they can experiment and they can do their standard generic modern movie poster, or they can do something a bit different like this one. And I just think it's cool that you get different things like this now. Number 5, the wild robot. So this one feels a little bit like cheating because I think you could take almost any shot from this movie, stick the title on it, and it would make a beautiful poster because the movie is just that gorgeous to look at. And one of the things I really love about this one is that you could take away the title and all the text and all the context, and this one would still work as a piece of art that you could hang on your wall. It doesn't even need to have the context of being a movie poster. I loved the painterly design of this movie. I love how that looks on the poster, and I just really love seeing robots in nature. I don't know why, it just scratches a certain itch in my brain. The image of it is just very satisfying to me, but I think especially so with this poster once you've seen the movie. I think the poster works on its own, but once you know the relationships between these characters, it just hits different. Number 4, Civil War. So I do think this poster was part of a marketing campaign that set up a bit of false expectations around this movie for people. This was definitely sold as a war film rather than a drama about a war photographer. But even with that, I think the poster design for this is just fantastic. The movie is just called Civil War, and the title doesn't tell you where that is, when it is, who's fighting who, but you get all of that information visually in the poster. It's the top of the Statue of Liberty with a couple of military guys nesting on the top. The Statue of Liberty is supposed to be a symbol of hope and freedom, and because it's so iconic, everybody already has that association with it. And so to flip that and make it like the center point of an American Civil War, I thought was really clever. And I love how it shows the scale of the conflict by not going big with it at all. Like, it's not some great big wide shot with two opposing armies on either side. They go super small with it instead. It's only a couple of guys sitting there and just the top of the statue, but that communicates so much more. Number 3, Challengers. This is one of my favorite movies of the year, and it has one of the best posters. It's super zoomed into Zendaya's face, and in the reflection of her sunglasses, you see the two guys playing tennis, fighting for her attention. And what I love about this poster design is the fact that there are so many other ways they could have gone with this where they really emphasize the tennis aspect of the movie. You can see this a bit with the IMAX poster they did, which I actually kind of like. But I think if they were to put tennis at the front and center of this poster, I think you'd go, oh yeah, this is a sports movie. I know what sports movies are like. Whereas I think this one invites so many more questions. Like, what's the conflict between the two guys playing tennis? Why is she staring at them like that? And why is the most important person in a tennis movie the one who's not playing? And of course, the whole movie is about the relationship between these three characters. And so the fact that they're able to show that dynamic in one single image, I think is just absolutely fantastic. Number 2. Inside Out 2. So Inside Out 2 was about hitting puberty and having new emotions coming in. It had the tagline, make room for new emotions, and so the poster had to visually show that. And their main poster does a pretty fine job of it. It shows all of the emotions squeezed in together. But this one, done by Fandango, I think does it so much better. This one's painted in 2D. They've flattened all the characters to make them fit onto one plane. The style they've done it in is very blocky. They have very harsh edges, and so all the characters have to fit into the slots made by each one's particular body shape. And this is to such an extent that the title of the movie has to be put in sideways to fit into the poster. And I think the fact that everything in the poster is having to squeeze around to fit in just hits that tagline of making room so much better. I think part of the problem with the main poster is that the way they've squeezed them all in makes all of them kind of the same size. And because their bodies extend off screen, even though they fill up the whole poster, it gives the impression that there's more room than what we're actually seeing. But this one feels really cramped to me because you see that invisible border that they're trying to squeeze into. And because this one shows the full size of each character, you get a much better idea of how big they all are in relation to each other and how much more awkward it is for them all to fit in. I thought this was a really creative approach to it, and I think it is one of the best design posters of this year. Number 1. The Phantom Menace. I do not like The Phantom Menace. I think as a film, it is boring. But for its 25th anniversary, Disney re-released it in cinemas, and with that, they commissioned a new poster from artist Matt Ferguson. He's a great artist, he's done a whole bunch of cool posters for other things, but I think he absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one. Usually floating head posters kind of suck. I've read rumors about there being contract negotiations that certain actors have to have a certain prominence on the poster, and that means everyone has to be sort of squeezed in. There's just a lot of examples of really bad ones, but this one is just so perfectly balanced. Like, I don't mind the original Phantom Menace poster, but I think this one just strips everything back to the bare essentials and makes everything pop so much more. Even just in the tiny details with the way that Darth Maul's eyes are looking at you, I think works so much better in this one. And I think this poster accomplishes the biggest task of all in that I really do not like the Phantom Menace. But this poster makes me want to watch it. And I don't think you can give a poster higher praise than that. So that's my list of the best movie posters of 2024. If there's any I've missed or any on here that you think shouldn't have been, let me know in the comments. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss anything coming up on the channel, make sure to subscribe.